Everybody to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl with Insider Perks and Modern Campground. And Zach Stoltenberg snuck in here during the intro. That was a really cool, kind of like magical appearance, man.
Had
Welcome.
another meeting ran a little bit late, so I'm here.
That's all right. Welcome, sir. Welcome. Excited to be here for another second week episode in the middle of July. We're through July 4th now in the camping season. Some kind of anecdotes, macro, micro, up, down, depending on where you are in the country and what type of resort you run. We should all apparently be following whatever Jeremy's doing. He's doing great. Uh, so maybe you should touch a little bit on that, Jeremy, during the show today. But let's go around briefly and just introduce ourselves. Let's start with our recurring guests, Jeremy and Zach, and then we can move on to Isaac. Jeremy?
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Johnson. I am the co-owner of Kona Hills Campground in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We are located on Lake Superior, just outside of Marquette and 200 feet above the lake. So we've got awesome views, and we operate a rustic campground. And we're just getting ready to start phase two, which includes our first couple of permanent cabins on the property.
Awesome. Excited to learn more about that. I know we talked about it briefly, but I'd be interested in like how you're deciding what kind of accommodations and what market research you're doing, because I know you're really deep into the figuring out, what other people are doing successful and taking kind of pieces of that and making your own thing. So,
Trying.
yeah, well, we all are, right? So,
Yeah.
and I wish I had the lake view you had. I was telling you before, like I'm at Lake View Swap in British
Yeah.
Columbia. The smoke blew in over the water overnight.
I'm sure it'll get to us soon, but right now we got clear skies.
Yeah. Zach, please introduce yourself, sir.
Zachary Stoltenberg. I'm a licensed architect that works with owners, developers, campground operators to help them design, permit, plan, build unique experiential stays.
Welcome, Zach. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, our special guest, Isaac Rains.
Hey,
By the way, spelled with a Z, Isaac Rains. Sounds like some kind of rock musician or something.
my parents were a little crunchy, so I got a cool name out of it. They like to keep it interesting. So my name is Isaac Rains. I own and operate Dappled Light Retreats. We are an outdoor retreat center and short-term rental glamping operation in Eastern Kentucky, right outside of Red River Gorge, Kentucky. So 50 acres of beautiful national forest on site. We have 10 units to sleep in. 9 of those are luxury glamping tents, elevated slightly into the canopy. We also just finished up a huge event space and communal space.
Nice. Yeah, that area of Kentucky is really beautiful. Like I haven't been there in probably like 12 years, but I remember going through like Carter Cave State Park and a bunch of the other ones we stayed at. We had a
Yeah, man.
partnership with the state parks where we did videos of their cabins years and years and years and years ago.
Oh, that's cool.
Beautiful parks, beautiful areas, yeah.
Dude, you got to come back. You got to come back. It's beautiful out here. Cliff lines are insane, and the geological features are just beautiful, as
I
well as
would
the
like to,
forest.
but honestly, like I'll tell you, I look out my window and there's like Banff and Lake Shuswap and everywhere else. It's a push and pull, man. Just
I understand. I mean,
there's no flight up here. I can drive. There's a flight there. And it's more expensive.
totally
All
get
right.
it.
To our first to our recurring guests here, Jeremy and Zach. It's been a month since we've been together on the show. Is there anything that come across kind of your desk that you think we should be talking about? Obviously, there's how did July 4th go and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying we have to take that direction, but we're just out of the holiday. But what else have you guys seen that you think is worth paying attention to or talking about?
Man, I've been so focused on the campground at my own campground that I feel like I haven't seen too much news lately. I mean,
Make the news then. You can be the news. You're allowed to do that.
yeah,
You don't want to be in the news.
I mean, I'll just say I'll kick it off with the small talk. We had a great 4th of July weekend, and the rest of July and August are shaping up awesome for us too. So, I'm always curious to see how these predictions will play out. People thought there'd be less travel, but I think at least in northern Michigan, and it sounds like everywhere the World Cup is happening is having good results too, despite some of the negativity.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know that, and I wish Scott Barr was here to have kind of more of the macro picture. He'll be on Outlier with me later, but I think the general sentiment was like not less travel, just less far travel, right?
Yeah.
people staying closer to home. And we are seeing that, we talked about, I don't want to dive into Michael Scheinman's post or anything, but he talked about some of the occupancy numbers and things like that. We're seeing higher site nights in Canada for sure. And I think it was last week, Simon Neal was on the show from Camp Map in Europe. And we had, I think, Ward on there from Eho Village, the franchisor in Europe. And they said their early season had started off slow, but then had picked up, and now Europe is supposedly poised to have a really, really good summer as well, even with all their heat waves over there. Yeah. So it sounds like maybe just there's a softening in the U.S. market. I don't know if I want to go all the way there, right? Again, there are outliers. That's a macro level picture, right?
Right.
Plenty of smaller micro operators like you, Jeremy, who are seeing success.
Yeah, I wish I knew more on the nationwide side of it. I'm just so focused on this like region, but I mean we're poised to have, and not just me, but like our region of the Upper Peninsula, we're poised to have a record-breaking year again. And I don't, I think some of that's probably because of things like that heat wave last week. It's down in Kentucky, down in Ohio, down in even Detroit, it's 100 degrees and almost unbearable. So people want to head north to the lake, Well,
but you were seeing success long before that, right? Your numbers have been up for a while. I've been following some of your LinkedIn posts, maybe not as much as I should. But I'm curious what you think. Like, is it with your product specifically in Upper Michigan? Do you think it's more of you're still getting your feet under you after a couple of years, you're still doing more marketing, turning on more things, pulling more levers that a new operator or owner could do? Or do you think it's maybe people are trading down to a little bit more affordable accommodations from their glamping resort, or maybe a combination of both?
I think it's more so that we're still getting our feet underneath of us. I wish I could attribute the success to my marketing, but I don't think it has much to do with it. I think it's just the fact that we are a little more visible. We're in year 2 and we just have a lot of room to grow. And then on your second question, like, I don't necessarily think people are trading down either. I just think it's a different part of the market. I mean, we also operate, at one point we had 4 or 5 Airbnbs that are a little bit higher end, and we've gotten rid of 3 of them. So we just have 2 left. But we launched another one this year. And our ADR on that is $550 a night, and it's booked up through October. And I mean, I don't think people are trading down at all. I think it's just different parts of the market. You got the high end that wants those accommodations, that sleeps 10 people. We got families visiting from everywhere from Royal Oak and Chicago to the Twin Cities, and then we've got our campground that maybe draws a little bit of a smaller group, but like those people, I mean, if I had nicer units at my campground, I bet those would be booked up too.
Well, the other thing too is it fair to say that your specific type of product with the experience that you built was also underserved too, which
100%. Yeah. There was just nowhere to, Michigan's, and Isaac, maybe you guys have this down in Kentucky too, but we don't have BLM land. A lot of people think like, oh, who wants to stay at a rustic camping site? And they think like, oh, you can camp for free anywhere. That's not true, at least in the Midwest. And I think honestly, east of the Mississippi, in our city, actually, Marquette, the city banned camping on city property last year because it became such a problem. People were coming into town, and instead of finding a normal place to camp, they were just like, whatever, I'll park my van on, downtown Washington Street, and I'll wake up at 6 a.m. and stretch my arms and go find a coffee or whatever. So that became such a problem that, they actually had to enact a new city ordinance, and there just wasn't a place for people to either pitch a tent or pull up a Sprinter van or a truck camper. I mean, we had all these RV sites. I mean, we've got probably 300 plus RV sites in a 5-mile radius of Marquette, but we just didn't have a spot for campers or van people,
Which I think just goes to show the power of, like, if you put some thought into what your market is and build something that they want, then you can be successful like you are in many cases, Jeremy. Versus
Yeah,
just like we see some operators who just put down, like, I want to build an RV park. Well,
right.
Okay, you need some strategy.
Yeah. How many RV spots do you have in your market already? Do you really want to compete with that?
Yeah, not now. I read another article Scott Barr sent me. It's like 19% retail purchases are down. Something like that.
Of the RVs themselves.
Yeah, of the RVs. Yeah, keep stacking. It's not pretty.
Yeah, that's wild.
So yeah, I would rather be in the tent or luxury glamping market. But that's something you do too, Zach, at your firm, right? Is you help people understand kind of what they should be targeting, building, and getting the science of that.
I would say on the development side, we're definitely not seeing a slowdown right now. We're still, we're kicking off. We kicked off a new project last month. We're kicking off a new one this month. I think it stayed fairly consistent. Where we have seen a lot of, especially the bigger developers, focus is more on acquisition and reposition rather than, greenfield, new ground up. But we are still doing several new ground ups. And the one that I'm most excited about, I can't talk about yet. But suffice it to say, when it does go public, we'll probably have to do a whole podcast episode on it because it is going to be really, really incredible.
I promise we won't tell anybody if you want to share.
It will be out soon enough for sure. But we're still seeing movement, and there's still very active development going on. I think in certain parts of the country, we've seen a little bit of a pullback, especially some of those areas that are really super saturated. And I think in some of those areas, we've seen a big focus, just kind of to echo Jeremy's point, on more high-end, more luxury. And even on the new ground up stuff, it's not enough to just throw a tent up and, get it out there for $100 a night. And the established developers who did that, threw a tent up and got $100 a night a year ago, they're now going back in and figuring out, how do we elevate this experience? Is it more furniture? Is it nicer furniture? Is it building experiences on site? Is it adding amenities? Is it, including F&B? And so I think really that focus today, what we see most of is a focus on a higher, better level of what they're already delivering.
Zach, I forget the name of that one in just outside of the Twin Cities that you guys did, but I know that, like, right now as I go to get financing for my next phase, I'm using that as a comp because those products don't exist near me today. So I actually have to go 5-6 hours away from my market to even find a high enough end comp to show my bank. It's kind of crazy.
Well, and I think that's a good point too. Talking about, again, those areas of saturation areas, we're seeing a lot more movement in some of those states that you wouldn't typically think of first on the list for glamping. We've looked at 3 different projects in Michigan. There's one I need to talk to you about because he's looking for a management operations partner. I think it could be a good deal for you.
Yeah.
But Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, upstate New York, a lot of those northern states, we're still seeing a lot of movement, active projects in there. Really, I'd say the biggest drawdown or pullback that we've seen is just from states where either the jurisdiction or the state laws and regulations are really burdensome, and make it like, you can do it there, but it's going to take 2 or 3 years for you to get, just through the preliminary stuff. And developers and banks especially are just really gun shy about any of those. And it's much harder to get a project financed if there's a big development hurdle from a jurisdiction or planning and zoning perspective.
Well, this is why I think it's hard to pinpoint. Like, you'll get people who say the market is up, you'll get people who say the market is down, you'll get people who say it's somewhere in the middle, and I think it's because there are variations of that that are all pointing over
Yeah,
certain
I think it's
fields.
all those things.
Yeah.
I think
Like,
there
I
are
think
markets that
China
are
was
down.
going up and never stopped because of the K-shaped economy we talked about. I think people are pushing more toward low end because of the same K-shaped economy, and they're staying closer to home or trading down in some cases. I think the middle is the one that's in trouble, and that's where you frequently hear like, well, and that's most RV resorts, right, that have been built in the last 40, 50 years are kind of generally right in the middle, some higher end middle, some lower end
Well,
middle.
and don't forget either, because RV is kind of a whole different ball of wax. We do a lot of RV as well. Um, I love how people want, and in the past, it hasn't been a bad metric to use to look at RV sales as sort of how is the RV economy doing, right? That was a picture, a known metric that we could use to make some assumptions about everything else. And I think one of the things that makes that not as good of a data point anymore is that, one, we saw this giant bubble through COVID of a lot of people buying new RVs, setting record sales, and that's starting to plateau, and a lot of those are now being sold secondary market. And so because we have this flood of inventory of used, they're not going to sell as many new ones. We've also had a massive increase in the RV share business. And, for a lot of people getting into outdoor hospitality, even people that are established, look and say, yeah, we bought an RV. I just sold it because we used it 5 times last year. We're still going to go RVing, but from now on, I'm just going to rent one anytime we want to go. And it'll cost me less, over the year. And so I think the RV share and so many used RVs being available right now, of course, that's going to drive down numbers for sales of new RVs, and they're going to stack up inventory. And that should start driving the prices down, which would get more people back into it. But is that necessarily an accurate reflection of how many people are going camping? I don't think so.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Yeah.
It could be a forward indicator in 2-3 years, but it's not today.
Yeah.
And again, whether you define camping as camping to me is RV, all the things, right? So that's Go ahead, Jeremy.
I don't know. This is probably a debatable thing, but I don't think RVing is camping. I just think there's I think glamping is probably more similar. Like, I mean, Isaac, you've got these nice glamping tents. Like, I'd say that's more similar to camping than pulling up a 40-foot RV.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using a roll-up term, right? Outdoor hospitality is maybe the business term, and I think everything, at least of all the words we've heard, and we've had this debate so many times on the show, right? There's no good word, and nobody has a good definition for it. But I don't know, anything outside with not 4 walls around you is camping to me. But
well, an RV might have 4 walls.
but they're not.
So do cabin tents.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
All right, 4 walls
Actually
is what I meant to say, like a motel, like another room on Saturday. That's what I meant.
I actually looked up Isaac before I jumped on, and I mean, I gotta say, man, like, your spot looks absolutely stunning, like just incredible.
We are really, really lucky. We've worked hard to curate it, but thank you so much. Yeah, we feel so lucky to be able to offer such a beautiful space to people. It's actually been in my family for almost 25 years now. So I was 6 or 7 when we bought the property. Went in on it with a few friends at the time, and for 15 to 18 years, it just kind of sat as our family and friends kind of campground, place that we would go. We would have community out there. And then about 5 years ago, we started developing it. And I feel so lucky every single day. It's so special to get to offer that space that I have that personal connection with to other people.
And I love what you've done from a branding perspective too. I mean, anybody who's spent more than 20 minutes on Instagram knows that bird watching and all this is like all the rage right now. I guess the thing, right? I tease my wife. She has the app on her phone that tracks like all the birds that she's seen, and we'll be out someplace. I'll see a bird, and I'm like, "Hey, you better get that one. Put it in your birdie decks. You better log it, or it doesn't count."
That's right.
So I love like that theming element and pulling in some of the colors and things that you did, and kind of playing off the names of the different birds and theming each of your units. I think it's really cool, and it's like spot on trend for right now. So it's awesome.
We kind of fell into that by accident. We just our family loves birds, and we thought it would be fun to kind of name these nests after different local birds.
Love it.
With the exception of our property manager cabin, which we call the Puffin's Nest. That's an ode to my Nana, who passed a few years ago. She's from Newfoundland, so had to get the puffin in there.
I would have just told you a puffin is a bird too.
But not local.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
Mhm.
Is the puffin actually a bird? I don't even know.
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, because we saw them in Iceland. We saw little baby ones that kids were tossing off cliffs.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
Yeah. All right, so they are a bird. I'm not crazy. I thought I was just...
No. They look like little dinosaurs, though.
I always heard they're the only penguin that can actually fly.
I could see that.
Are they actually from the penguin species?
They're black and white. They kind of look like penguins, but I don't think they are.
Now, while we have another conversation that's related to what our audience probably wants to hear, we can keep going. So yeah, talk us through some of your accommodations here, Isaac. We had 3 of them pulled up.
Yeah, so I'll start with the cliffside cabin right there in the middle. That is the oldest structure on our property. And that is actually a carryover from when it was just a friends and family space for us. So cliffside cabin is pretty small. I mean, it's 400 square feet on the ground floor. So nothing too crazy. It's got a lofted sleeping area. But we made the whole back wall kind of windows, which you'll maybe notice as a theme with us for our hard-walled structures. Just as many windows as possible. But I feel like the windows really kind of make the space feel a lot bigger and a lot more open. It also highlights that valley view on the outside. The cabin's, 20 feet, 30 feet from the actual cliff edge. So you're right there looking at the cliff edge. And it started as an off-grid cabin. That's where we spent a lot of our holidays, a lot of my weekends as a kid. For the first few years, we were just camping, and eventually got a little yurt that we threw up, and then worked with a local builder to build this cabin. Brought it on grid about 4 years ago when we started expanding and opening it up to people. But it's a really simple little space, and that's kind of something that is intentional. Like with our spaces, we don't like to do too much whenever possible, because the whole reason we started and the whole kind of heart behind what we do is surely similar to what you all are doing as well. But we want to make nature accessible to people, and we want people to connect with nature deeply whenever possible. So we didn't do anything super fancy inside, kept it pretty simple, and let the surrounding nature kind of do the hard work, hard lifting for us. I rambled a little bit. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think there's also a difference in the simplicity, though. Like I was looking through the pictures, you can see them in the bottom corner here, like the little games and stuff like that just make it feel like a home instead of a hospitality, like a sterilized hotel room or something like that, right? Just those little things that are hidden away still that keep it simplistic, but just allow it to feel more like home, I think, can make all the difference sometimes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that switch going from an off-grid dry cabin to, fully connected?
Oh man, what a journey that was. So for my whole childhood, we would, cart in all of our water every time we came. We'd just be carrying gallons and gallons of water in with us. Um, we we started off no electricity and then ended up getting solar panels, which was really cool. It was super fun to have the cabin kind of run off of just the sun's energy. Um, but we are in an area that for part of the year can get pretty cloudy and dim. And, obviously for consistent rentability, the solar would have taken a lot to kind of upgrade to the point we would need to. So, we started renting the space out off grid, and we kind of set it up as best as we could to make the experience easy for guests. So, we would bring in water for people. We would kind of, explain the solar system to them, let them know about how much power they would have each day. People actually loved it. I was really surprised because we kind of put it up online as like a test just to see, will people connect with this? Will they enjoy this experience? Not really sure. And people, I was blown away. People loved it. They were like, it's so cool. It's beautiful. It's off grid. And so for our first year or so, we rented it off grid, and it went well overall, but it was a lot of work on the back end for us and for the guests who are having to kind of like bring in a bunch of supplies and that type of thing for themselves. And so as we started hosting more and more people, and kind of a more diverse selection of people started coming through, we started to realize that, okay, it might be time to add a few more of the amenities for folks. That'll open us up to a broader audience. It'll make nature more accessible for more people. And even though we love being off grid, it just feels like this is kind of the way to go if we want to successfully operate as a business. And so we ended up bringing in electricity and water and gas at the same time that we were building our first round of glamping tents. So that was about a year, maybe a year and a half into this journey. We had gotten enough traction that we wanted to do something else on the property, something unique. And so we looked at geodesic domes. We looked at a few different options, some prefabricated options as well. And nothing was really speaking to us. Nothing was getting us super excited. None of that was really fitting the budget. And then we happened across some safari tents, and we were like, okay, this is cool. Like, coming from a family who loved camping, I just really connected with the safari tents and thought it was such a cool way to kind of get that feeling of fresh air and sunlight kind of diffusing into your space, hearing all the nature surrounding you, while still having some more comfort than you would sleeping on the dirt, basically. And so we decided to build 5 glamping tents to start off. And since we were adding electricity to those, and water and all this stuff, and bringing in utilities for the bathhouse that we were building for all of these tents, we decided, okay, it's time. It makes sense. We're sad to kind of see the cabin lose its off-grid status there, but feel like it's the right time. So we ended up hooking everything up, and people ended up loving that version of the cabin as well. So yeah, it's been really cool seeing how people connect with the space, and like every different phase, has its ups and downs, but every phase that we've had, I feel like we've had some really generous, kind, and gracious guests come through and just affirm that what we're doing is really, really meaningful to them. So that's been special.
Will you talk us through some of the design? Because to me, this design, like the bright, bold colors, is intentional.
Thank you. Yeah. That aspect, not my specialty. I did help with it, but you'll notice each of the tents kind of has a different color theme. Generally, that corresponds to the bird that the tent is named after. And we knew we wanted to do something kind of simple, a little, I guess, bohemian, maybe you would call it. I'm not really sure. Again, not my specialty. But we wanted something simple, but punchy and beautiful and colorful, because we love color. And I know muted is kind of the vibe for a lot of people right now. I think that is cool, but we've always just loved color, as I'm sure you can tell from our website and our units, sleeping sites there. So we ended up designing each tent kind of with the bird that it's named after in mind. And it was my sister Zoe who did most of the design, which I'm really grateful for. She's super talented.
It looks like it, yeah.
And so we just did a lot of natural textures, lots of really, really saturated color when we could. And kept everything pretty simple. So you have, wood, metal, and canvas and some fabric. And that's pretty much all that you'll see going into the design for the most part.
So kind of a similar question or related question. Since the tents are dry tents,
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned a bathhouse, how are you, from a guest experience perspective, how are you making the tents, be comfortable, have all the amenities, everything that they need, while keeping them dry? And then what do you have in the bathhouse, and like, how far away is that? How are you making that work?
Yeah, great question. And probably the biggest question that we get asked. I mean, that's the first thing out of every guest.
Because it's not very clear on your website.
Yeah.
You need some pictures of your bathhouse on your website.
Really good feedback. Thank you. I'm actually going to make a note real quick. Thank you for that.
Because I think my wife and I went up to visit my brother just a couple weeks ago in New Hampshire, and we stayed in an off-grid cabin, so solar for the power, all that. And there was a little bit of a walk to the bathhouse. And it was fine. And we had a blast. We spent 2 nights there. But again, it was a little surprising when we first pulled up and my wife was like, oh, we have to walk to the bathroom, because it wasn't like clearly communicated on the website.
Yes. So that is, like I said, one of the biggest questions that we get. We do try and let all of our guests know as they're booking, here's the bathroom situation. If that's an issue, please let me know. We'll refund you or figure something out. But it's been, even though it's the highest source of question and maybe even anxiety for people, although I feel like that might be a strong word for the situation, it's not really been a huge issue for us. So each of the tents we've set up with electric running inside, as well as gas heat. And then we did pull water to the outside of each tent as well. So folks can get drinking water, they can make their coffee, they have easy access to electricity and all that stuff. And we built the bathhouse specifically so that, two things. One, we specifically built it so that it was a 30-second walk from each unit. So we try to keep it really, really close. And then 2, we over-engineered it, like probably way more than we really needed to, because I've been in some raggedy bathhouses. I mean, I've been in some some rough bathhouses, through traveling and camping and that type of thing. So we really wanted to kind of overdo it with our bathhouse, since we knew that bathrooms inside of each tent wouldn't really be viable for us at the stage that we're at. To do that in our area, we would have to clear so much of the forest around the tents. It would just kind of ruin the view, just so that we could put septic systems in, and we kind of struggle with that a little bit. So
have you thought about doing even just like a sink, where, like, again, I always think about my family, my wife, would she want to stay there? Like a basic sink and a mirror, at least somebody can like wash their face before bed if they got to take out contacts or something with their, and that's not, usually sink water doesn't always have to go, all the way to a septic system. I mean, it can go to a bucket that sits underneath the sink that you change out when your housekeeping crew comes through. Or have you thought about maybe like composting toilets, to where, yes, if somebody's willing to make the walk, down, but if they need to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, you don't have to get shoes and a flashlight.
Yes. Yeah. So this year, actually, we've started exploring sinks and potentially incinerator toilets and or composting toilets. We're kind of entering the next phase of building.
You're in just what we were talking about. Like you through the initial, and now it's how do we upgrade? How do we? Yes.
Exactly. So we're kind of entering the next phase where we're like, okay, we might want to throw a couple more hard-walled structures up, and we might want to upgrade what we already have as far as our tents go. And so, short answer to your question, I know I've been rambling for like 20 minutes now. Short answer to your question, yes, we have started looking into that. And up to this point, I've been surprised how happy people are with what we have, even in its current state. And we do a lot of work, I feel like, to set expectations with each guest as they book and kind of make sure that they're comfortable with everything. So I think that does a lot of good for us. I learned that the hard way. I think that setting expectations really helps.
Probably the number one thing. Like after you've built it and after you've done all the things right and put all the planning and the architecture and the design and setting the expectation is the win.
Yeah. Yes.
So how much of that guest satisfaction that you've been successful in generating, how tied to that do you think your ADRs are? Because you're at a very affordable rate right now.
Yes.
So do you think that kind of customer happiness is like, we're happy with this because this is what we paid for it? Or do you think you could get to a higher ADR by adding some of those additional kind of creature comforts?
Yeah, I think so. I think it definitely plays into it. It's hard to deny that the lower price kind of offsets any discomfort that folks have. But that being said, I will say we keep our short-term rental prices pretty low because our bread and butter is retreats. So full property events and retreats. Those events, people are paying a much higher nightly rate because they get the full property, because they get food catered in, because they get the event space and all this different stuff. And even with those guests, some guests who, usually would be considered higher end, or I don't like that phrasing because I don't think some people are higher end than other people, but guests that are used to higher end accommodations have also really loved the space and connected with it. And we've gotten some feedback, some things to work on from that, but 90% have been completely happy, even in the current state, which is honestly surprising to me.
Is there ever, for you from an operations standpoint, is there ever sort of any conflict with having a large group or an event where that whole property is booked out versus kind of those individual just short-term stays? Like from a booking perspective, like, do you get those calls for somebody that wants to book an event and you've already got 3 short-term rental stays that, those days, and so you got to say, no, that's, it's not available, or that pushes the group bookings, months out in advance? Have you ever thought about maybe as you expand the property and you're talking about, some more hard-sided units, more soft-sided units, maybe kind of dividing that from a master plan perspective of like, this is our retreat center. And I mean, based on the events you've hosted, kind of roughly what those group sizes are and what works for that. Maybe just designating part of the property that this is the kind of retreat area, and then maybe your expansion is into a newer area that's more, focused on just the individual stays.
We definitely have thought about that. So our property it's 50 acres that sits on a horseshoe of cliff edges. So it would be fairly, easy. Easy is not the right word, because it wouldn't be easy.
Nothing's easy.
But it would be fairly achievable to split that horseshoe kind of in half and say, okay, this side of the horseshoe, that's going to be short-term rental. This side is retreats only. But we don't have the capital for that right now. So the way we've made it work is, sorry, to answer your question, yes, there is some conflict there that we had to work through. And our first 6 months, especially, were definitely like a huge learning curve of like, how are we booking these things? And how do we do this in a way that, allows us to actually make a profit of some kind, but also to where we're not like leaving either retreats or short-term rental guests out to dry, basically. And what's worked for us is allowing retreats to book well in advance if they want, and limiting short-term rental bookings to a rolling 60-day ahead of time schedule. Because we noticed for our area, or for our property specifically, most short-term rentals are booking within 2 weeks. So kind of like, doesn't really make sense to have 6 months from now open for one individual stay if a retreat is going to be booking 4 months in advance and they want the whole property. So that's kind of how we've set it up currently.
That's a good approach.
That's a kind of decent segue to your, like, sorry, please, Zach, if you have a question, but I was going to segue to his events business here just for a second.
No, I said I think that's a really good approach, that, understanding those markets, knowing the retreats are booking in advance, and then being able to close out those windows and fill in the gaps with the short-term rentals.
Thank you.
But yeah, I want to hear about the event center, because this building looks really cool.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah, I'll run you through it real quick. I feel like I've been doing all the talking. Like, I want to hear from Jane as well, and Jeremy, and but the event space we call the Rookery, kind of following that bird theme. A rookery is a space where birds or mammals, in some situations, gather in community to kind of rest, rejuvenate themselves. That's usually where a lot of the animals will take the time to give birth and start raising their young. And so we wanted to create a space kind of central to our tents and all the units on site, where especially retreats and events could gather. And so it would be a space where you could get up, unzip your tent, and walk down the hill and kind of enter this space and have a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, start journaling, hanging out with the people you came with, that type of thing. And so we decided, we had a tent in the spot that the Rookery is now. We decided to take that down because it was this beautiful section of cliff edge that looks towards the sunset out over the valley. And we're like, okay, this is where people are going to hang out. And so we worked with an awesome local architect to the Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area named Greg Tilsley and his team, Tilsley Architects. And they kind of helped us design. We went through probably 5 to 10 different iterations of what the space might look like. And they helped us kind of design a space that would transition fairly seamlessly indoor to outdoor. And so again, like I said, the windows are kind of a theme for us. You'll see most of the walls in this building are actually windows. So that back wall that you're looking at here actually points straight out into the valley towards the sunset. And all of those doors kind of slide open to allow for a seamless transition from inside into the outdoor deck. And so as we designed it, we kind of, again, really tried to keep it simple. I mean, it's beautiful. It's masterfully designed, I feel like. And we didn't overdo the features or anything like that, I don't feel like, intentionally, because what we're hoping for is for groups of people to come and connect really, really deeply with each other, get vulnerable, especially for these kind of leadership team retreats, corporate retreats that we're doing. We wanted a space that would take folks who are used to kind of being in an office all the time. They're used to a very rigid schedule, rigid to-do list, maybe some stiff interactions with coworkers because you're going through the motions every single day. I've worked an office job before. I remember how that felt to just like, you connect with people, but it's only so much. So we wanted a space where people could walk in and feel completely different than they normally would at work. And so what we landed on was a lot of wood, a lot of warm colors, natural materials. I feel like really help bring people down to kind of a more grounded state, and beautiful views. And so,
I don't want to interrupt you, but I found the bathhouse.
Please. Yes. That is our bird bath, our beautiful bathhouse. Individual bathrooms with their own personal heaters, showers, sink, toilet, all that good stuff.
I didn't mean to change your subject. Sorry.
That's okay.
I was curious.
You're good. And so we kind of designed the space to be really simple as a way to offer folks that easier access to vulnerability and deep connection and intentional kind of creative problem solving for groups that are in need of that. So it's got a large common area kind of in the main area that transitions out onto 1,000 square foot deck that I am in love with. So that's where most people spend the majority of their time, is on that deck, either around the little fire pit or facing the sunset with a cocktail in their hands or coffee in their hands. Additionally, we added a pretty big kitchen. It's not commercial sized. We didn't want to get into all that, but it's pretty dang close. So big kitchen, tons of room for serving, tons of room to kind of set up appetizers, catering, mix up drinks, make your coffee in the morning. set up a breakfast bar. When we did the grand opening for the space, we actually just turned the whole island into a charcuterie board, which was super fun. So kind of set the space up for meals, for deep connection and conversation, and for time in the outdoors. And the feedback we've been getting has been, I mean, I almost feel like we don't even deserve it. It's been so good. That's something broken inside me, probably. But people have been really generous with their feedback and have been loving the space. We've had experiences with groups where people are in tears over lunch, like an hour after they've gotten there, just because they so desperately needed that natural space to kind of release the tension and the things that they're dealing with and connect with people that they're close with. And so it's been really cool. Like I don't feel like I'm exaggerating when I say like we've seen lives already kind of start to be impacted and changed by people coming out to this space, which is just such an honor to be able to offer a space to people for that.
Jane, I know you snuck in here. Obviously, a lot of experience with glamping and campground consulting, and certainly, Jeremy, you've had your eyes on some really unique properties and with what you're doing. Do you guys have any questions here on what Isaac's building or thoughts?
I really.
Sorry, Brian, I can't hear you.
Oh no.
Okay, go ahead, Jeremy, and then we'll get back to James.
We can hear you, Brian. But Isaac, I'm really curious because I'm going through a lot of the same things that you're talking about right now, and that you've already done. Do you think it would have been worth it to preserve the off-grid electricity with like a solar system? Because people seem to really like that. Like, do you think if you would have spent that money, that would have kept like some like cool factor to it that people would have appreciated?
I think it would have kept some cool factor, but I don't know.
You can do both.
That's true.
You can do solar and still be grid tied.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I think so. I think it would have kept some of the cool factor, but I've never actually regretted putting it on the grid.
Yeah.
Aside from, the fact that we aren't operating off of renewable energy for that one anymore is like a bit of a bummer, like I would love to keep that and implement that wherever we can.
Yeah.
But from a business perspective and in a kind of high level perspective, I don't think it would have done enough for our guests to justify the size of the investment, the amount of work, or the potential troubleshooting that came along with it.
Yeah.
Now, when my electric gets knocked out from a snowstorm later this year, maybe ask me again and I might have a different answer. But
I'm literally weighing the cost of like a pretty substantial battery bank right now because I'm on top of a rock outcropping, and just to get electricity up to my property, it's substantial, and I mean the battery bank is more expensive, but I'm like, it might be worth it in the long term.
Yeah.
I will say, on the properties that we've done development on where we've looked at both ways, it has never penciled out that off-grid was more cost effective. Even, looking at some established operators that are off-grid, when I ask them like, hey, are you happy with that decision to be 100% solar? And they've come back and said, no, hell no. Like, we did it because, they got that sticker shock. They looked at having to run, a half a mile or a mile of underground or overhead, and it looked really, really expensive. And they looked at solar and said, well, that's about the same price, but we could do it faster, or it's a little bit cheaper with the incentives. But they're all still running backup diesel generators. They're still running, some alternative, because from a guest experience perspective, I'm sorry it was a cloudy day, so you have a cold shower tonight isn't good enough. And so, I think I love the altruistic part of wanting to do it, wanting to be good stewards of the environment. And, there's certainly a marketing angle that could be run with that. And that's why I said you can do both. Net meter it and say, hey, we generate, enough power to offset what we're using, right? But yes, we're still
solar powered if you really are. You're just
yeah, you can
and
absolutely
also,
you can.
right?
Yeah, we're powered with renewable energy, but I think there's still enough questions with reliability, capacity. When you start pricing out some of the big battery banks and the installation, not to mention they do have a finite life span on those. I know my in-laws just replaced all the batteries in their off-grid cabin, and that was less than 10 years that the batteries that they had in previously were there.
Oh, wow.
But it was not cheap to replace that. And so, I think when you look at that whole picture, you've got to evaluate guest experience, you've got to evaluate reliability, and you've got to evaluate life cycle cost. And over that long term, grid tied is still really, really hard to beat. So I think you did the right thing there. But I think, again, from a marketing perspective and from a guest experience perspective, put up some solar, especially in some of your visible areas. And, you brought up a good point about not wanting to cut down a bunch of trees for a septic system.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do an elevated solar field over that septic system.
Oh, yeah.
And that becomes a lot better, oh gosh, they cut down all the trees. Yeah, it's because they brought in solar. And it sometimes we look for sort of compatible uses with that, right? To not just lose that space or lose all of those trees, but is there something else that we can use that space for? Maybe it is a big lawn that's adjacent to your event center, to where if you had an event that was too big to fit in the rookery, that you could put up a big tent on the lawn outside and host a larger group or gathering. So I think you got some options there with that. But I will say, when it comes to the question of solar, over the long term of the life cycle, it rarely pencils out unless it's your only option.
That's really wise.
Jane, can you hear us now? Or me?
I can hear you, Brian. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Welcome. I saw you snuck in here a little bit ago. Sorry I had a chance to get to you. We only got a couple minutes left, but Jane, do you have any questions for Isaac? Or
I don't. Unfortunately, I have not met Isaac before, and I haven't had an opportunity to look at his website. But it does sound very interesting, and I am going. I've made a few notes, and I'm going to go look at his website right after this meeting. I do. Not the problem, but the thought. What I always think about is, what is the repeat and return value on the experience? And with any glamping, not just this particular property, is it really just a novelty experience, or is it something that creates repeat and referral business?
I think you send everybody back into the real world, they're going to get stressed out again and need to come back. So it seems to be pretty repeat from what he's built, right? On the cliffside with all the, the decor and views. And you tell me, Isaac, what do you think? Would you have data on that already?
Yeah. So I think that is a really good mindset. I think when we first opened up, we were kind of like just testing the waters a little bit, oh, people are into glamping right now. This is cool. Like, we've camped before, but we've never glamped. Like, this is a unique thing that people are into. Let's open up space for people, since we have the space for glamping. And so, we definitely noticed when we first opened, it was kind of during that initial recent boom in the last 5 years of glamping, outdoor recreation, that type of thing. And so we definitely noticed like, oh, wow, like the interest is super high. People are coming back. People are loving it. To your point, it did start to dwindle a little bit after a couple years, which we expected. We're like, this isn't going to last forever, but what a cool opportunity to kind of curate this space for people. And I don't think people are ever going to get tired of getting outdoors. Personally, I think that's going to be something that people continue to do for as long as we have the outdoors available to get outside into. So our mindset was, and please, if I'm not answering your question, please let me know. I'm so sorry. I'm starting to lose the thread a little bit, but as we kind of worked through things, started noticing some trends through the first couple years of business, we realized that glamping itself in our region, at the level that we were doing it and wanted to do it, was not going to be a viable business option for us. And so, there are other people in the area who are very successful with glamping. I think we're one of maybe 3 or 4 glamp grounds in the area. The other places are awesome. They do a great job. And it seems like they stay nice and busy. But because we started to notice a little bit of dwindling and we wanted to do a little bit more with our property, that's actually the reason that we started hosting group events and retreats and kind of catering to that experience, was because we had the realization that, year over year, short-term rental glamping, the way that we're doing it, is not going to feed us the way that we want to be fed. And so we started figuring out like, okay, let's do events here. Oh, let's tack on this amenity or this experience. Let's partner with this local business, and kind of started like reaching out and growing out instead of piling on to the original plan, which was, let's put some tents in the trees and just see what happens.
I think there's too many people who do that, but it sounds like you're definitely not one of them.
Yeah. We try not to be. Yeah. I think we really have a passion for true hospitality, like helping our guests. And I think most people in the industry do have a passion for hospitality. But I don't think we would be comfortable just setting up something and letting it be whatever it is. Like, we want to offer a curated kind of experience for our guests.
All right, we're a couple minutes over, so I want to just wrap up the show real quick. Always hate cutting it off, but let's just give final thoughts from everybody here. Zach, final thoughts, and then where can they learn more about your architectural firm?
I just want to give Isaac some props. Like I said, I think he's done a really incredible job with what they've built so far. It's exciting to see, them kind of in that growth model now and progressing, and continuing to do wonderful things. So, congrats to him, and keep it up. And for anyone that is looking to get a hold of me, LinkedIn, Facebook, the socials, all of that, you can email me, zstoltenberg@lja.com. That's where I hang my hat, and I'd love to chat with anybody that's looking for help getting started and making a splash like Isaac has in outdoor hospitality.
And you specialize in elevated solar panels over septic tanks, right?
Have done it before. Yes, I have. I don't know that I specialize, but yes.
Jane, final thoughts, and where can they learn more about Campground Consulting Group?
Campground Consulting Group. We're also, our sister company is Glamping Consulting Group, not as well known as Campground Consulting Group. Isaac, how long have you been at this for me? I just asked that question. Last question.
5 years.
5 years.
Mhm.
And it's obviously a passion,
It is.
right?
Yes.
But are you profitable?
Not in
Are
the
you profitable?
not in the way we want to be yet.
Not yet.
We will be.
Okay.
We will be this year, hopefully.
Okay. I just like to ask these questions. I think that a campground consulting group, we and glamping consulting group, we come at it as definitely hospitality people, but we also understand that we need to turn our passion into profits. And so we work with clients like yourself of all sizes, and we work on that, and we look at paths to include vision with profitability. And I think that's very, very important. And also help you look at key metrics that you should study as you go along the way. Right.
Awesome.
And I apologize for not being able to attend the entire meeting. Like all of you, this is the busy season. So I get tied up, but good luck. I'm going to study your website. I've looked a little bit. It looks beautiful. And thank you for sharing everything. And if anyone needs to get a hold of me, I'm of the older generation, so I don't do a lot with LinkedIn or any of that, but just give me a call on my cell phone, text me or email me. My cell is 603-455-1884. Happy to help anyone.
Thanks, Jane. Appreciate you being here. And last but not least, Isaac, final thoughts, and where can they learn more about Dappled Light Retreats?
Yeah, I just want to thank all of you. I was super nervous. I've done a couple podcasts before, but I still get the shakes every time. But you made it so easy. Thank you. You guys made it so easy and asked great questions, and I'm just really, really grateful to be on here. I don't know if you remember, Brian. My dad and I were actually, when we first opened, we were on an episode, but our internet connection at the property was so bad that we basically had to leave. So I'm glad to have a redo.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast. I'm very old, and
that's okay.
Right there, and we discussed all this, right? But I'm glad to see your internet connection is better now.
Yes,
it's a really great conversation. I appreciate you being there.
Thank you.
And what's your website again for everybody who doesn't have it?
Yeah, so anybody who wants to reach out or check us out, you can go to dappledlightadventures.com. You can also reach out on LinkedIn under my name here, Isaac Rains with a Z. And yeah, we're hoping to book another 40 retreat nights this year. So it's a big lift, but we are looking to talk to people. So anybody who's interested can reach out, shoot me a call, shoot me an email, and always happy to chat retreats with folks, see if we can create a unique experience.
Awesome. I'm sure you'll get there. Well, thank you for joining us another episode of MC Fireside Chats. Thanks to Jane, Jeremy, had to pop out to another meeting, Zach, and Isaac for all your great knowledge and sharing all the great things you've done with your property. If you're not sick and tired of me already, you probably should be, but if you're not, then I'll be back live with Scott Barr in about 51 minutes. We'll be doing Outwired, talking about marketing and how that's maybe a little bit broken the way we deploy it today and where it's going to go in the future, and then some other economic stuff and things like that we do on Outwired all the time. If not, we'll see you next week on another episode of MC Fireside Chats. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.